also expanding upon them for things like crosswalks and public space management. So it's a budget session time of year, and we could do what essentially the Riverfront Commission has done and issue a request of council, a formal letter from the commission requesting monies to update our planning. I know that the budget cycles are very tight every year for city council. However, it can help us to start building the story. We may not get funded this year. We may continually ask for years. We have Brian in the room, but I think we continually run into problems like we did with when we reviewed Flatiron just now, even where the downtown master guidelines, or the downtown design guidelines could be improved and could certainly be completed with photos. So if the commission is interested in making a recommendation to council, I think Dana and I could offline write that letter, but the general purpose would be to please fund. I think what we've done with Riverfront is say a joint project of updating both guidelines could cost as much as $150,000. So we're also, they went to PED last week, I believe, and was given a little kickback to find a more cost-effective way to do it, utilizing some internal resources or that kind of thing. But does the committee support Dana and I drafting a letter recommending and requesting council approve monies for updating and completing our design guidelines?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Didn't expect too much.
That's a no-brainer.
Okay. So rather than try and draft that letter together today, Dana and I will tackle this. We can keep it simple. Does that sound good? And if you want to chime in certain comments or something, I'm happy to add those if you want to send me an email about why it's important to you and interruptions to the review process that you have felt because of their lack of completion would be really helpful. Okay. We are moving on to the final stage of updates and reports. We've got the Parking and Transportation Subcommittee, so I'm going to race through this. I've got this on the screen. I don't know if we can make it any bigger. That's coming right from my iPad. But this Parking and Transportation has been hyper-focused on loading zones, and the last thing we did was survey through the downtown census. We asked pointed questions about loading zones, and then Nate and I had a stakeholder meeting a couple weeks ago, and it was pretty packed. We packed this room more than we packed this room for this meeting today. So lots of great input, lots of cross-sector representation, different kinds of businesses, retail, restaurants, lots of input. And the next steps for us are to kind of, aggregate all their input and meet with as a committee about how we might move forward. But I did want to share with you today the results from the downtown census that showed loading things, and particularly, so this is a heat map. So when you see purple, you've got an incident. When you see yellow, you've got a concentrated incident. And these concentrated incidents, no surprise, are around essentially the Flatiron and the Grove Arcade. Yeah. But we did this last year as well, and this right half that kind of looks like the letter C is a newer cropping up, and it could be that the more people responded to the survey, so we had 222 businesses. But last year, the biggest point of peak issues was around Haywood Street and Wall Street, so that is not a surprise to us. There are other things on here, so this is an interesting one. Street gets blocked by vehicles that are loading. Boom. Those are all of the places where people reported their street gets physically blocked. We've got, we asked if you had like residential tenants that needed loading, so we were just talking about businesses, and there were not as many as those. Here's where we talked about our loading zones big enough, and these orange circles represent places where they were not large enough. So we've got both an issue of not enough or not large enough. And then the last question we asked was, is the loading zone full when you need it? So this is mostly, I'm not sure why the news is showing up for loading zones, but welcome. We have a loading zone issue. Feel free to put it on the news. But this is the congestion, so this is space is full when we need it. And these issues they're normal issues for downtown. There are worse problems to have, but we are working on this as a committee. We did also survey what time of day loading is needed, and we definitely see it kind of drop off at a certain hour of the day, so we're looking at could the loading zones become nightly parking. So more about that in the future, but I wanted to have this data. It will be, I'll send a link, we can put it in the minutes so you have access to the maps, okay? All right, Franzi, do you want to do the census review now, or would you rather wait till next time because of time?
work, and I've requested staff to show up and kind of guide us through what their processes are like. And the other thing that we're doing, what the staff processes are like in regards to what the downtown master plan public space management guidelines will actually be able to do, actual problems that will actually be able to solve with these kind of frameworks. So sort of thought exercises about that to highlight the scope of work that's appropriate. And the other thing we're doing right now is creating a public engagement survey. And so right now the homework for the team is to all contribute 2 questions. One relating to their specific role and reason for being on the committee. And I'd like to open that up to the rest of the downtown commission. If you have any questions that you would like to submit for the public space management public engagement survey, please send them on to Dana, and we're gonna collate, group, and edit them down into a lot of sense. But I'd love to get full coverage. I'm sure there's gonna be lots of duplicates. So, but I'm always looking for these really unique questions that ask something that we just didn't think of. So please, fire away.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, last we have Dana Frankel with downtown update. How does it feel to have this at the very end?
Different now that the news 13 is here.
We're blocking the view.
Okay. Dana Frankel, good morning, everyone. Have a few updates for you. So regarding the budget process, there was a council work session held earlier this week, and the proposed budget document should be scheduled online May 10th. A budget public hearing will take place on May 28th during City Council's regular meeting, and the budget is scheduled to be adopted on June 11th. So the May 28th date is a good one to keep in mind, because that, again, is the public hearing for the draft budget. 68 Haywood Street will open for the season on May 1st. So we're getting the shade sails and the tables and chairs and umbrellas back out before that date. We're doing some refresh plantings, and we're gonna continue the mobile food vending program. If anybody knows any mobile food vendors or organizations in town that want to do something more organized, I'm actively reaching out to people to see if there's interest in that.
Is there any interest in light of what's happening with the Memorial Stadium and parking on the terrain? Are we considering parking in 68 Haywood? Now that we've established parking in parks.
What I know is that in 2020, when we start the Haywood Streetscape project, that site will be used primarily to support that project. So a combination of staging and probably to support the project in terms of communications. TBD regarding parking. Visiting Artist Project, community engagement is coming up in June, and this summer the works of art will actually be developed in coordination with the community, and they're scheduled to be installed this fall. Locations of where exactly that'll be installed aren't determined yet, but hopefully will be soon, and that will be in the Eagle Market area. Street and sidewalk maintenance, the city's concrete crew is working in the central business district just on small issues, including some of the bluestone on Haywood Street and other toe trip issues. Development project updates, 155 Biltmore Avenue. The lodging proposal was approved by City Council last month. The Flatiron proposal did go to the Planning and Zoning Commission earlier this week, who is recommending approval. That project is scheduled to go to City Council on April 23rd. And Broadway and North Market Street was discussed earlier in the meeting that they're planning to come back to the Design Review Committee on Tuesday of next week. Events and closures, the Asheville City Market kicked off their outdoor market last weekend, so they will have North Market Street closed every Saturday. But the market's between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. on North Market between Woodfin and Walnut. And the review process for the Strategic Event Partnership Cycle is not going to, that cycle's not going to begin next year. Instead, there's going to be a bridge year in 2020. So organizations that have been receiving support from the city will continue to receive that level of support. And our outdoor special events office is going to be meeting individually with organizations and event organizers to determine, for those who haven't been receiving support, if there's a level of support the city could be providing in this bridge year, but otherwise TBD regarding that next cycle. And Roger McGuire Green has been closed off so that the grass can intake route, and that will be reopening this weekend. The Aspire Conference, hosted by the AIA South Atlantic Architecture Organization, is going to be using portions of it this weekend. And as I hope you all know, the city's working on revisions to the noise ordinance. So there's currently an online survey open, and that's open through June 2nd. That's on Open City Hall, so I encourage you all to take the survey, and we will have the team working on those revisions come to the Downtown Commission to get your input as well. And regarding the bike share and scooter feasibility study, that's getting pushed in terms of when staff is going to council, likely till June, but transportation staff, Barb Mead, plans to come to the Downtown Commission next month to give you guys an overview and get any input that you have. That's what I've got.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So this hotel on Broadway, what's that gonna do to the city market?
Not sure if there are going to be impacts or not at this point, so it is something that we'll look into.
Are we doing the talk with the city staffer at the park thing this summer? What's it
Downtown
called?
open office hours?
Open office hours, yes.
Yes.
May I suggest Deborah Campbell?
Yes. I did request that she come to a Downtown Commission meeting, and I hadn't gotten that confirmed yet, but I'll try for both.
I did too, and I heard back, it's just maybe down the timeline a little bit. Another one, maybe during budget talks, is to have Taylor.
Taylor was out today. I tried to get him here today too, but I mean the dates at this point in terms of public engagement are fairly, there's not a lot of
Okay.
movement
No, but that
there.
would be helpful, since we're talking about writing a letter to council about a budget ask for design guideline updates. What is this kind of timeline? How soon does, if you have a letter to council, when does it need to be in?
So the public hearing is really the right time for that, and that is May 28th.
Although sooner the better, I would assume.
Staff is presenting the proposed budget on May 10th. But the time for public input really is during that public hearing. So I know that the design review committee went to planning and economic development, which is not typical, and I know we lost Brian, but that was a recommendation of one of our council members. You're welcome to write a letter to council anytime.
Personally as well, not just as a commission entirely. I write lots of letters. Okay, that was all I have for you, Dana. Anybody else? Great. We have a couple minutes left for public comment. Would anyone, members of the public, like to speak?
Just very quickly, my name is Peter Landis. I went to the meeting last night about 82 Broadway, and they were asked that great question, what about City Market? And basically the entire development staff stood agape. They said that they hadn't thought about it. So it would have to be something they have to consider. Most of what they talked about, however, was parking, and how the parking will be for the hotel and the residents there. But the people who depend on parking for their businesses and residents in that area don't seem to have any parking included in that plan.
The
market.
The market is on the market, right? On the street.
Yeah, the entrance on to the hotel's gonna be on Barton.
Right.
Right, but they just seem to be.
So they can't just close it, take it back.
Gotcha. And, let's keep in mind that that market has only been there for a few years, and it's been other places. Should it need to move, it can move, right? But I don't think we're not gonna risk losing our market. The
Right.
market is a mobile thing, yeah. Okay, it used to be on Billboard. Okay, any other members of the public who would like to speak? Any informal discussion, future agenda items? Dana and I are working on a work plan, which is literally like a list of things that have come up in the last couple of years of working together and when we might tackle them. So we've got columns for months and years so that we don't overwhelm ourselves and get in 4-hour meetings every month and never really move forward. So we're trying to create a timeline and a plan that is effective that we can follow. We'll have a draft document to you soon. We've got it pretty well outlined, but we'll come back to you next meeting or perhaps via email before then for any So maybe what we'll do is get via email the process that currently exists. And then if we need to have it as an agenda item, we'll be talking about in the future, I'm holding this.
Before you do that,
In the future, I've been reviewing some of our structural guidelines, like our charter, and there is a formal process that we're supposed to be following for adding things to the agenda, which is if 3 members of the commission feel that it's a substantial issue, then it can be added to the agenda. So keep that in mind, because in the future, I'm going to kind of get us on our rules, but so we don't just have much topics.
Although the chair can arbitrarily add.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
so I have an announcement, it's time for our annual party, so I'm thinking early May.
So you all
Okay with
listen to your
everybody?
report? Okay. Sounds good. That sounds great.
I had one other thing. Sasha sent us